Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us for this important conversation about student debt forgiveness. Senator Booker and I have been advocating for this for a while now, and we are fortunate to have with us today a tremendous group of advocates and leaders who have dedicated their lives to education and issues of social justice. We have Dr. Lamont Rapollet, the president of Kean University, with us, as well as two Kean students, Jason and Delilah. I'm also pleased to welcome Ryan Haygood, the president of the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, and Robert Smith, the president of the New Jersey NAACP. We want to thank you both for your advocacy in this movement to cancel student debt loan. And especially on behalf of minority borrowers disproportionately affected by this crisis. And finally, I want to thank Howard University, Velva Dawson, for joining us today as well. Let me just frame our conversation. For far too many Americans, and especially people of color, crippling student loan debt has turned the promise of a college education into a decades-long burden, an insurmountable behemoth, sometimes nearly impossible to climb out from under. Nationwide, 40 million people own $1.6 trillion in student loan debt, including many hardworking New Jerseyans. Indeed, the U.S. Department of Education data tells us that more than 1.1 million New Jerseyans carry a staggering $42 billion in federal student debt. Again, that's $42 billion in federal student debt in New Jersey alone. Never mind the billions in private student loans people take on when federal financial aid falls short. We also know that when compared to their white counterparts, people of color are more likely to take on student debt and more of it. Indeed, the Education Data Initiative has found Black graduates owe an average of $25,000 more than their white counterparts. So it's no surprise we see higher default rates among minority borrowers. And that was before COVID-19 wreaked havoc on our communities of color. That's why we believe canceling student debt is a matter of economic and racial justice. Now, this issue matters to me a great deal. I am the son of refugees who became the first in my family to attend college. I wouldn't be where I am today without federal financial aid. But college is far more expensive these days, and back then financial aid covered more of the costs. You know, when I graduated from St. Peter's University in 1976, a Pell Grant covered over 75% of my annual costs. But these days, a Pell Grant covers just about 29% of a low-income student's college costs. It's no wonder that borrowers are drowning in $1.6 trillion student loan debt and that we have 9 million borrowers in default. Our federal investments in college affordability have not kept pace with rising costs. It's hard to wrap your mind around a number like 1.6 trillion until you talk to people who are struggling to repay it. It's dragging down their credit scores. It's making it impossible to save money. It's forcing young people in the prime of their lives to give up on buying homes, starting families, or launching a new business, and perpetuating inequities that continue to hold back our communities of color. Throughout this pandemic, Democrats have fought to provide relief to borrowers. We successfully secured repeated extensions of the emergency deferment period. We successfully pushed for the reform of the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. And we successfully incorporated my legislation with Senator Elizabeth Warren, the Student Loan Tax Relief Act that Senator Booker joined us in, into the American Rescue Plan. As a result, borrowers who qualify for debt forgiveness are now protected from huge surprise tax bills. But these are small victories in a much bigger fight. The president must take bold, transformative action. That's why Senator Booker and I are calling on President Biden to forgive up to $50,000 in federal student loan debt. And you know what? He doesn't even need Congress to act. The Higher Education Act of 1965 already gives him the authority to cancel student debt. President Biden could forgive student debt today and literally transform the lives of millions of borrowers for the better, especially in poor, low-income, and minority communities. Here in New Jersey, we have 1.3 million borrowers who spend an average of $310 a month on student loan payments. And for many borrowers, it's even more. Just think of what people could do if some or all of that debt was forgiven. For starters, it would be good for our economic recovery. The Education Data Initiative estimates that canceling student loan debt could grow our gross domestic product by over $600 billion over the next 6 years, create 1.5 million new jobs, and lift up 5.2 million households out of poverty. Conversely, resuming student loan payments on May the 1st without any forgiveness would drain about $85 billion from the US economy over the next year. So let me close by saying President Biden has a historic opportunity here. Canceling student debt would not only transform the lives and the financial outlook of millions of Americans, it would help us build a more equitable and sustainable recovery.